Hello, it's Trisha here. Now you've seen my use of the Autumn Woods Charm Pack by Renee Nanneman. Absolutely beautiful fabrics. So when I was making these snowboard blocks, I had lots of triangles left over and all of these scrappy little bits which I didn't do the right thing of stitching these together at the time to make half square triangles. So having been left with all these little triangles, as I told the ladies watching at the time, I'll find something to do with them. So today was the day when I thought I'm going to have a little play. So I went and I found a scrap of wadding, not this particular piece, but I'm going to show you what I did and then we'll go from there. So here was my scrap of wadding and I took some of my little pieces and I just placed them on the wadding. Now this is thermolam, so it sticks quite nicely, can you see? So all I did was just lay some triangles onto the wadding like this, overlapping them slightly. Doesn't matter whether you do or you don't, but so that the wadding wasn't showing through. And let's see, we could put that one there and we could put that one there and a little bit of the beautiful colour there, but so easy in the way that you can just lay them together and you can see how beautiful those fabrics are. And what a shame to actually waste them. So having popped those together, we'll put those out of the way. I'll show you the little piece that I did just earlier when I was playing. So I laid all my pieces out, didn't really think too much about where they were going, other than I didn't want two pieces together at the same time. So, or right next to each other. And then I thought, well, I don't really particularly want the raw edges, although they are pinked, so they wouldn't fray. So I got myself a little bit of organza, which I'm going to lay over the top. It roughly covers, and I suppose we could put a pin here and there just to hold it in place. And then I thought, how about a little bit of free motion quilting? So I put my free motion foot on and we're going to have a little play. So off we go. And I'm just thinking how relaxing this should be. So I haven't got it going too fast at the moment, but I am going to do it a little bit faster. And I'm just going to do a little bit of vermicelli. So I'm holding my hands out of the way and just allowing the machine to hold all of this together. So I probably should have anchored it a little bit better, but we will do, that's it. A hoop would have been good. Let's just cut that away because my thread has got anchored there. So let's just keep going and we will just vermicelli around. Perhaps I should be going a little bit faster, but it's all about the pleasure that we're getting out of a little free motion. So around we go, fill in some of these little gaps here and around again, out towards the edges. And all I'm doing this for is to anchor all of the fabrics. So let's take that pin out now as we get around to it. And we'll go a little bit faster. What you'll notice in this heat or the atmosphere is that it doesn't always move as smoothly as you want it to. So we'll just keep, so I'm sort of pulling at one end just so that I've got some leverage. There we are. So let's just pull that to the side and around again. We're coming near a pin, so we'll just take that one out. And around we go. If you wanted to do something more intricate, by all means do. But the whole idea of this, it's just a little bit of sewing. And I think what I'm going to do now, although I'm going to trim it, I'm just going to take some little steps, little stitches around the outside to hold it all together, to hold the organza down just around these edges. So we'll just keep stitching along here and to the edge of the fabric that I can see through here. And let's see, that's pulled up a little bit there, so never mind. And let's just trim that off. And doesn't need to be perfect because these edges are all going into the seams. But as I said, the organza is just holding it down. I'm going to go little by little because obviously it's quite free at the moment. So along this edge, just to keep this all in place. And we've got a little bit of excess there, which that's it. Let's just pop that underneath and come down this side, anchoring those little bits as well. So there's no particular pattern. I have just free motioned all the way around the edges as well. So there I have my piece. The fabrics are saying it all. So I'm just going to get my cutting mat here and let's do just a tiny bit of trimming. So let's get this roughly straight. Just trim those edges off here. So let's just pull that little bit and then we'll just move it just so that I can get a nice straight edge and pull that out of the way. And then at this end, so I haven't bothered, there we are, at this end I'm just making sure it's lined up with that straight edge there so that I will get a nice rectangular shape. And again, let's just line that up as well, pull it over so I trim the minimum of fabric away, but hopefully I can have a lovely rectangle of fabric. And the last little bit here with a longer bit there. So now I have a lovely rectangle. Let's just see, line that up. Yes, that is perfect. So all I want now is a little bit of contrasting fabric, which is this one here. And I'm going to place that on top so I can see, and then I'm going to trim this to size as well. So as I say, this is all off the cuff. We're just playing. So I've got nothing in my mind apart from I'm going to make a little pouch, a little lined pouch. So there, oops, get that down there, trim that little bit, and then I should have cut that end off first, and we've trimmed that one, so it's just this end here which we can trim across there. So the tiniest bit of fabric there, nothing too excessive. We have our lining piece the same size, so I'm going to place my lining fabric on top, and I'm going to put the odd pin or two just to hold that together, ready for my stitching. So there's lots of different things you could do with this. We could put a zip, but I'm just going to do what will be a very quick project. So let's take that out of the way. I will of course change my foot, and we just need to take my free motion foot off, and I've already raised my feed blocks so that we are ready to go. And I'm putting my 1/4 inch foot back on there so that we can get back into regular stitching. Okay, so I'm going to leave, I've put my fabric right sides together. I'm going to leave a little gap in the side rather than, or am I going to leave it at the end? Let's leave it at one of these ends. Okay, so if we start, there we are, start near probably 1 inch to 1.5 inches. There's my feed dogs coming up. 1 inch to 1.5 inches from the this centre. I'm going to leave a gap along here, and I've put my stitch length up to the default setting of 2.5, and we can just stitch down to that corner, and we'll pivot and go across our short end, and the fabrics are sitting nicely together. I think we need one more stitch there to get our 1/4 inch, and then around we go to the other side. I'm just thinking fabrics don't need to be wasted, so I've got enough pieces left over to actually make another one of these. So I've almost got to the end there, so I've just reversed, and I'm going to take the smallest of slivers off the ends of the corners, because I don't like to make it unstable at the corners. We don't want little holes to come there, but we will just take just a little bit off, and we can then turn that through to the right side. So there we are. So the organza is a clear, fine fabric, and it doesn't really detract from the beautiful, let's just take that little bit of stitching away there, from the beautiful fabrics that are below the organza. So I'm just using my little pokey tool just to poke those corners out. There we are. This is a lovely quick project when you want to sew and you don't want to cut into your beautiful stash of fabric, but you want to use a little bit of what's already there and really just going to waste, or that would sit in a pile waiting for an idea to spring to mind as to what you could use it for. Okay, so let's just poke that little corner out there. That's good enough for me. Okay, now what I would normally do is most definitely, there we are, how good is that? I will go to the ironing board and press. So let's just move that in now. Obviously using organza, you do need to be careful when you're pressing, because you could easily melt, as it's made of a nylon, acrylic, a synthetic material. I'm just going to put some pins in there just to hold that, and too high a heat would easily melt the organza. So let's just hold that together with pins or with binding clips, but we've actually got cotton fabrics with then a synthetic fabric. So let's just pop that like so, just hold that nicely together, and then I'm going to stitch from the front all the way around this edge. So I am going to start on the end which is open, because I want to close that first of all. So nice and close to the edge, and that way you know that your gap is going to be closed and you're not going to miss any stitching. So, oops, there we go. And all the way around, we will be stitching over the top as well. So just by going around the edge very close, it's not really going to show. So the next little bit, just around that corner, and down the other side. And I started just away from the corner so that I could go around the corner and just go over those first few stitches so that you can't see where I started and stopped. Okay, so let's trim that little bit away, and then purely for ease we can fold that up and fold that down, and we have a beautiful little pouch. So binding clips on both sides just to hold that together, and this time, because I've got that stitching right near the edge, I'm going to do 1/4 inch in to give what would appear as a twin needle effect. I'm going to do 2 rows of stitching, but I'm using the 1/4 inch setting here. So I'm reversing when I get to that top, and up to, there we go, that's about 1/4 inch, that's lovely. And then stitch across here, all the way across, giving me that double row of stitching. One more stitch I can see, and back down here. When I get to the top here, I'm going to go over that little flap and reverse, because that's going to take all the stress of opening and closing. So I'll reverse again there as well. So let's trim that little bit of thread. We'll trim the thread here, and we can fold that flap over. Now I can see I'm going to use, I would now measure, there we are, that's about 5 inches. It is exactly 5 inches. So at the 2.5 inch mark, which is there, I'm going to make a little slit. I'll leave that in there and grab my prim pliers with some cam snaps, and it actually looks as though I've been using a fair few of these lovely gold brads. So I'll grab myself, whoops, an innie and a lid and an outie, or a lid, a button. There we are. So the first things we are going to need is our outie, and I can see where that went just there. So we can press that through and pop our outie on the top. I can see that little nodule coming through. So I'm just going to put the button into the cup and give that a good squeeze. Then I'm going to pull that over, see that that lines up beautifully, and then where the button is, I'm just going to lift that up, put my seam ripper just below and make a hole so I know exactly where it needs to go. Take my button and see if we can find it just around here. I suppose I could pull it open and, whoops, can't find it. There it is. There's the little slit. Put our innie on the top, and then I make sure the cup to hold the button goes on the inside. Hold that together and squeeze. So let's pop that together, and there is our beautiful little purse made from scraps. So open that up, nice little pouch, great craft fair make, great quick make. Pop a gift card in there, pop a lipstick, or even a little bottle of vino. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with some more lovely makes.